All right, what's going on, guys? So today I'm going to be comparing the XPS 13, 15, and 17. And the way I want to structure this video is I want to talk about the XPS 13 first and then compare really the XPS 15 and 17. And if there's any difference, I'll talk about the XPS 13 because these laptops do share a lot of similarities, but there are some minor differences between them. It's mainly just under the hood and just the overall outside aesthetic that makes up the differences. So in terms of specs, the CPU and GPU is really what separates the 13 from the 15 and 17. So with the 13-inch, you can only get 4 cores because it's using Intel's G series, which is mainly graphics focused. But with the XPS 15 and 17, you are able to choose from 4 cores all the way up to 8. They're using the H processors by Intel, and they do come with dedicated graphics cards. So they both come with 1650 Ti, but specifically with the XPS 17, you can get it optioned up with the 2060 Max-Q. And I would also say that the XPS 15 and 17 are really trying to be your desktop replacement, whereas the XPS 13 is more of like your companion to your desktop if you already have one. So if you are trying to replace your desktop, the XPS 15 and 17 is something that you should look into getting. So next up, I want to talk about the keyboard. And what's really cool about the keyboard is that I believe they're all the same size. It's really just the XPS 13 keyboard picked up and moved on to the XPS 15 and 17. They all share the same size. It's just that the actual length of the 15 and 17 is longer for those speaker grills. But the keyboard is going to be the same whether you move over to the XPS 13, 15, or 17. So same across the board. The touchpad is using the dolphin mechanism, so it's kind of hard to click towards the top, but as you move down towards the bottom, it's a lot easier to click. I have found it is easier to click down on the XPS 17 and 15. I know there was a trackpad issue when these laptops first came out. I don't have the touchpad issue with my 13 or 17 inch. It's only with my 15 inch, but from what Dell has said and the announcements they've made, doesn't seem like they're having any more problems with the clicking that's happening on the trackpad. So if you do decide to buy at the time of me recording this video, you shouldn't have to be worrying about that problem. But if you do have that problem, please contact Dell and ask for a replacement. They should have that issue resolved for you. Another major difference between all these laptops, or I should say the 13 compared to the bigger models, is that you can't actually upgrade the RAM inside the XPS 13. You can only upgrade the M.2 slot. So do keep that in mind if you have upgradability as a factor for your purchase, that you can't upgrade the RAM inside the 13-inch. So on the outside, they all have the aluminum finish. It looks really nice. It also all comes with the carbon fiber on the inside. The ports is where there's another big difference. The XPS 13 has the least amount of ports with 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, a headphone jack, and a micro SD card slot. Whereas on the 17-inch, you get 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports, and then on the XPS 15, you get 3 Thunderbolt 3 ports. So I'm going to stop talking about the XPS 13. Oh, one more thing I want to add is size, clearly. The nice thing about the XPS 13 compared to the 15 and 17 is that those machines are a lot heavier and just they're bigger machines, so please take that into consideration if you are deciding to pick up those laptops. I believe they both start at around like 4 pounds, goes up all the way up to 5. So if weight is a factor for you for your purchase, XPS 13 might be one of the only options you have to consider. But you know, 1 pound isn't that big of a difference if it's in your backpack. And like I said, if you are looking to get these laptops as a desktop replacement, then you know, these are pretty much your only 2 choices that you should have to consider. So next up, one thing I forgot to talk about before putting away the 13-inch is that you can actually get touchscreen with the full HD Plus display, but you can't get that with the 15 and 17-inch. You only get that matte anti-frosted finish. I can't remember what it's called. But the nice thing is with the 15-inch specifically is if you do decide to get the 4K model, it's $100 cheaper than getting the 17 or the 13-inch. I'm not sure why it's $100 cheaper, but it's $300 on the XPS 15 and then $400 on the XPS 17 and the 13-inch. So now is the real comparison, which is the XPS 15 and 17. And what I want people to get from both these models is that they are both really powerful machines. Like I said, you can get all the way up from 4 to 8 cores. They both come with dedicated graphics cards, but the major difference, I want to say the 3 major differences is, first of all, is the size. XPS 17 is bigger just because, you know, 15, 17. You can also get this with the 2060 Max-Q, which is more powerful than the 1650 Ti. And you also have to account for the weight. The XPS 17 is just a tad bit heavier, but I don't think that's going to be that big of a difference. It's just something I want to point out. Also, this is the other real major difference, is that it's using a vapor chamber cooling system. So I would say this machine overall is going to be a lot cooler than the traditional heat pipe design that XPS 15 has. Now, my recommendation is, unless you really need the extra 2 inches, I don't recommend you should go for the base model of the 17-inch. The 15-inch, I mean, for me, is probably like my happy medium size if I can't get the 13-inch. 17 is big for me. I already said in my MacBook Pro review that the 16-inch is too big for me. The 15-inch I think is a pretty good sweet spot in terms of size and just, you know, desktop replacement. But if you want to get more power out of this machine, basically the graphics department with a 2060 Max-Q, then the XPS 17 is pretty much your only option. You also get a bigger battery inside the 17-inch just because you are using more powerful components. But in terms of battery life, you're not going to see that big of a difference between the two. But I would say that, yeah, that's pretty much the only recommendation that I have when purchasing these laptops. But that's pretty much going to do it for me in terms of this review. Like I said before, you can upgrade the RAM as well as the SSD in both these machines. They come with 2 M.2 slots, so if you want to add in, you know, a second hard drive, still keep your main one on there, you are able to do that in these machines, whereas on the XPS 13 only has 1 M.2 slot, no RAM, it can be upgraded. But like I said before, I'm probably just reiterating myself at this point. I don't recommend getting the base model for the XPS 17 unless you need that extra 2 inches. Whereas on the 15-inch, good happy medium, the base model I would say is perfectly fine for most people. But if you just want more power, looking for a real desktop replacement, you should probably spend the extra money to get the more powerful processors and graphics inside the XPS 17. So hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. I completely forgot to talk about fan noise. Fan noise, I would say the XPS 15 and 13 are quiet. Actually, they're all relatively quiet. It's just that when you start to push these machines, I would say that the XPS 15 is definitely the loudest out of the 3. It's not anything that's too harsh. I wish I had some type of decimal reader, but I don't have one on me. And unfortunately, that's all I can really say on that. It's nothing too obtrusive or, you know, distracting, I would say. But just know that the XPS 15, in my opinion, is louder than the XPS 17 and 13. So now it's time for my real outro. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, found it informative. If there's any questions you guys need, please let me know down in the comments below. Subscribe if you like the content, leave a like, and as always guys, much love.